talk about this story, I want to go ahead and say this. This is actually an issue that's been going on for a while, and it just shows you the level of disrespect that the left or leftists have for our military. I've been saying for a while, I've talked about this on my backup channel, Gear Issue 33, which of course I'm turning more into a military and movie reviews channel and also a military history channel. Then again, at the same time, I've also created another account called Semper Gumby, where I may post some of those videos there as well. But the thing is this right here. I've been talking about this. The last thing you want is a political military. And I understand that this particular situation is not talking about the actual military itself, but more the Veterans Affairs. But still, though, when this type of story comes out, it takes you back in time to when they actually wanted this iconic photo removed. Now, the story behind that photo is something we're going to be exploring in this video, but also something else too. I'm going to be explaining to you guys why it is that this attempt has been going on for a very long time and why this attempt to do so is just, once again, the radical left going after anything positive in American history. There's also the statue question, but of course you guys know my feelings on that there. I've been saying for a very long time that the statue should not be removed because while it may be something that may be considered to be a negative to some and a positive to some, it still at the same time gives the people the inclination to look at said statue and then say to themselves, you know what, man, we have really and truly come a long way. By the way, societies that try to erase their history, they eventually become communist societies. But don't worry, we'll talk more about that over this course of this video. But let's go ahead and get this story.
Veteran Affairs is now facing new backlash after a top official tried to ban displays of an iconic American image. This photo, officially titled VJ Day in Times Square, shows a Navy sailor kissing a woman he didn't know, all as people celebrated the end of World War II. But VA Under Secretary Rima Ann Nelson recently ordered the photo's immediate removal from all VA buildings, saying in a memo, quote, the photograph, which depicts a non-consensual act, is inconsistent with the VA's no-tolerance policy toward harassment and assault. But VA Secretary, he denies, Secretary McDonough, that he was forced to reverse the move on social media, posting, quote, let me be clear, this image is not banned from VA facilities, and we will keep it in VA facilities. A piece of history, Ari, at least.
I've been saying for a very long time that if you let the left touch the military, then the military will not be worth saving. They will destroy it from within. And we're seeing it now. Which also brings us to the question of the VA. What does it say to veterans that you want this photo removed? What does it say to them? I know somebody's going to say that the two are not related, but in a lot of ways they are. They are very related. These right here were accomplishments from World War II veterans who defeated the Nazis. The same people you accuse us of being, even though you guys are the ones who are the Nazis. I just want you guys to just kind of think on that a little bit, but don't worry, we'll be touching on that in another video, probably the one this week. The iconic photo of the sailor kissing the nurse on Victory Day, shortly after finding out that we had defeated the Nazis, or maybe it was the Japanese. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's still the photo that was taken on Victory Day in Times Square of the sailor kissing the nurse in celebration. Almost like when you kiss a girl on New Year's Eve night or the minute the clock strikes midnight and now it's New Year's Day. But still at the same time, though, this is obviously a pretty iconic photo. It's just basically celebrating that we defeated the Nazis. You know, the same people that the radical left accuse people like myself and those of you probably watching this video of being. Makes you wonder who the Nazis are now. So what's actually the story behind this photo? Well, back in 2019, for whatever reason, the Washington Post, they put up this article, and actually looking at it now, I'm kind of glad they did put up this article, so that way you guys can kind of see exactly how crazy these people really and truly are. They wanted said photo removed from the halls of the Veterans Administration. They basically wanted it removed altogether, citing it was assault. Here's the actual story behind said photo.
Strong, remembering the American sailor who turned to that young woman in Times Square.
The victory flash electrified Times Square.
August 14th, 1945, the war was finally over.
The world's mightiest city marked the end of World War II in one tremendous shout of joy and gladness.
Millions around the country pouring into the streets, celebrating the end of World War II. There were so many kisses, but none like this one. Times Square, one of the most iconic images of the 20th century. That sailor, 22-year-old George Mendonça, in 1942, serving aboard a destroyer in the Pacific. And in 2005, he told ABC News about that day in New York. He was on leave, and he was actually preparing to go back to serve.
I was in Radio City Music Hall when they stopped the show and they said the war's over. And everybody went down into Times Square. And, of course, there's some mob of people. And everybody was raising hell and having a good time.
The nurse he kissed? Greta Zimmer Friedman. And why did George pick Greta on that day?
It was the uniform.
Her dental uniform, reminding George of the nurses serving in the war, helping the injured. In 1980, he and that nurse Greta reuniting in Times Square. They stayed in touch through the years, telling each other about their families. His family tonight saying George loved his country and was proud of that photo.
The picture is still known around the whole world as a symbol of the end of World War II. This is one of the good things that ever happened to me.
It is a beautiful image, George and Greta, in that kiss.
So the man and the woman in the photo kept in touch to his dying day. They never got married or anything like that, but they kept in touch. I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't seem to me like this situation was a situation that harbored bad feelings or anything. I mean, if anything, obviously the nurse, she obviously got off on this. I mean, there are women that do enjoy being kissed by men. I'm not trying to call them sluts or anything like that. I'm just simply saying there are women who do like being kissed by a man, typically because they're straight, which makes me wonder about the sexual orientation, which I'm not making fun of. I got to say that for YouTube's terms of services. It just makes me wonder if this woman who's upset about this photo is just some man-hating person. I don't know. Obviously, there's some psychological issues here, but let's keep going. And to go on top of this, you've got the fact that the gentleman who kissed the girl has been passed away for a long time. Now, maybe it's possible that these people were like, oh, well, he's dead. We might as well move on. Either way, though, it's not showing the proper respect. You see, we had just won World War II. And to go on top of this, while the Nazis were defeated and while we were defeating the remnants of Imperial Japan at the time, eventually dropping the bomb on them twice. By the way, I stand and say to you that we should have dropped those nukes. Even though I do like Japan, I still think that they deserve the 2 nukes that we dropped on them. The thing is this right here. This right here is American history. This right here is American lore. It's something that, quite frankly, is pretty daggone iconic, and it symbolizes exactly what we went through and the struggle being over. That right there being the struggle of defeating the Nazis. Like I said before, it's the same people that the left accuse us of being. They accuse us of being Nazis, but yet they're the ones acting like Nazis. So essentially what happened is that the Undersecretary of the Veterans Administration wanted this photo removed. Has been trying to get this photo removed for a very long time. There's even a statue in Sarasota, Florida of said photo, but still we'll get to that here in a second. And you wonder why it is that the United States military is at a current recruitment shortfall. It's just also strange, too, given the fact that we're also cutting 24,000 troops from the U.S. Army. We'll talk more about that in the Gear Issue 33 version of this video, because obviously it's an attack on our institution itself. But I want to keep, for the purposes of this video right here, I want to keep it for the most part on the photo itself and why it is that the left actually hates the institutions that they claim that they actually love. Then again, at the same time, they never actually claim to love the military, but still at the same time, and I know I'm saying still at the same time a lot here, but it's very, very weird how these people's brains operate. It is a good thing, however, that the current VA department head shot this entire notion down, but it does make you wonder exactly what else is circulating through the Veterans Administration. But let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into the story. So basically what happened was that Fox News had a little segment on Outnumbered talking about this situation. And a lot of things were brought up that I think that we, quite frankly, need to pay very, very close attention to.
Yeah, first of all, if I'm the House Republicans, I want to know everything else Rima Ann Nelson has done.
Absolutely. Yes.
What other memos has she sent? What other directives has she sent that are blatantly anti-American culture and what we view as one of the most historic, wonderful moments in life? Can you imagine being right down the road in Times Square? World War II, 4 years of Americans dying is over. The rejoicing, the celebration, the joy that picture encapsulated. And then somebody comes along and says, we're banning it because it was non-consensual is the argument against it. Totally out of tone, totally out of the mood of the country. And I'm glad that the Secretary of VA had the strength to immediately overrule a subordinate. But this is part of the thinking that is just so nuts about progressive America. And I hope Congress digs deeper.
Yeah, and it happened without knowledge. It reminds me of the FBI memo targeting Catholics that had to be rescinded once it was found out about Harris.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
That was Ari Fleischer. Ari Fleischer was press secretary, and he was an advisor in the Bush administration. A lot of people automatically look at him and associate him with Iraq and Afghanistan, all that type of stuff there. But seeing how it is that I'm a veteran myself, I can't help but obviously think to myself, you know what, dude? Why in the world do we have such people like people who are trying to get rid of iconic photos, things that quite frankly are historical, especially given the fact that it was a moment of celebration defeating the Nazis, you know, the same people that the left accuse us of being, which they're actually acting like. The thing is this right here. You would figure that these people being so anti-Nazi, they would be okay with this photo, but still at the same time, like I said before, these people's minds, it's very weird how they operate. They're obviously broken. But the thing is this right here. If you are a House Republican, or if you are, the truth be told is if you're a House Democrat too, you should be looking into this. You need to find out exactly how deep this entire situation goes. I know it's a photo, but still though, you need to be able to, let's just say, weed out all non-American or non-American loving people that are currently serving in our military and in our governmental institutions. You see, it's not just the military. This out here also extends to other branches or other offices within the government itself, administrative or law enforcement. You need to know who the people are who are actually coming to arrest people. You need to actually know this. I'm going to link this video right here in the description box from Jacob B. Peterson. He used to have a channel called The Preppers Bunkers Outdoors. It's still the same channel. He just renamed it to his actual name. He talks about the Second Amendment. He talks about the ATF and how it is that they're trying to actually subvert it. But still, at the same time, you need to know who the hell it is that's actually working in the federal government itself. I mean, it makes me wonder why it is they tell you that we do these very, very strict background checks, but then when you actually get said person in the actual position of power, you find out that these people are ultimately just anti-American. But it also gets worse because you can actually spot these types of people.
Assistant Undersecretary Rima Ann Nelson, quote unquote, from a VA official, will remain at the VA. It doesn't say exactly what she'll be doing. And I don't know, from what you were saying, I don't know if they'll take a closer look at some of her other actions and memos and so on and so forth. And she apparently cited, as you said, non-consensual, and that it has to be consistent with the department's sexual harassment policy. I would think that they would actually have some actual sexual harassment cases that they could be looking at. In fact, friends in the military tell me that they do.
And
so
that
maybe the
was not
undersecretary
one of them,
could
that
focus
picture.
on that.
But this campaign started really in 2019, Kennedy. Look at the Washington Post. It began in the liberal media, of course, and then tried to become policy at least. World War II's most romantic kiss wasn't romantic. It was an assault. That's 2019 Washington Post.
Good Lord.
Then you fast forward to today. Bring up the Associated Press. An iconic World War II photo showing a non-consensual kiss was almost banned from display. Didn't last long. They're just running
by this. And I guarantee you that Rima Ann Nelson didn't sit down with any veterans, particularly those who have served in combat, and ask them how they felt about that picture and ask them how that informed the memories of their combat experiences. You know, she just looks like a frustrated, constipated grump who's trying to exercise whatever power she has in whichever way she can that in no way serves the people who have served this country. So while they're at it, they should clean house, fix the VA, and get rid of people like this who are making bad decisions on behalf of all veterans.
Morgan, and you were born and raised in Florida like me, and when you go through Sarasota, I've seen this statue probably 1,000 times. It's called Unconditional Surrender, and you see it here. We'll pull it up. It's beautiful. It's a memory of World War II. It's clearly inspired by that photograph. But then come the Me Too movement. Here's 2019, and they chose to vandalize it. So this has been going on for quite some time.
This right here, once again, just shows you exactly how much the left in this country does not like anything military related. And you oftentimes wonder to yourself, well, why is it that we can't find people who want to actually serve in our military? You know, Andy Stumpf was on the Patrick Bet-David podcast a couple of days ago, and he was talking about this and how it was that our military was defined. Well, and one thing about our military is that our past accomplishments and past achievements obviously they do need to be celebrated. I was looking at this thing a while back from the BBC. I think it was a documentary on Putin. And I'm not really talking so much about Putin, but I'm talking about the Russian people themselves, who still obviously honor their dead. Anytime we bring up World War II, I mean, they even honor the Napoleonic Wars. They are still keeping things intact. They're still keeping their history alive to a certain degree. Our history also needs to remain alive as well. As a matter of fact, I want to go ahead and toss this out here, and I'll probably do a bigger video on this at a later date. One of the things I noticed about the Soviet Union during the days when Stalin was the head of the country, even when Lenin was in charge for the very short amount of time that he was, is that you see these Red Square parades and you see these people carrying photos of people who are currently in the administration, very, very high, very, very large. They had completely wiped out their culture before of the czars and all their previous accomplishments in favor of the new thing. That's kind of what's going on here in the United States, except it's a little bit more subtle in some cases. It's also a little bit more open in some cases. We'll be doing a bigger video on this because I'll probably lump that in with my statue video later on this year. But the thing is this right here. This photo right here and these people protesting and wanting to have them removed, it only goes to show you the level of discontent and hatred that the radical left who do work in our government and our government offices, it only goes to show you exactly how much they hate this nation and probably how much they hate veterans themselves. Now, I let the segment with Harris Faulkner and Kennedy both run back to back a little bit longer, roughly 2 minutes and 2 seconds. And the reason why I did that was because I think the most important thing that you have to take away from this, when somebody is saying that because it was a non-consensual act, especially given the fact that I just showed you guys earlier that the couple remained in contact, well, not really the couple, but the man and the woman both remained in contact until the man eventually passed away. Navy veteran, and of course, she was a nurse, and obviously it was done in a celebratory action. Let me ask you a question. How does one, especially a man, how do you actually get a woman? You tend to go for it. Now, I'm not advising that you do something non-consensual or anything like this, but in this case, this right here would have been perceived to have been okay because it's like a man is kissing a woman in celebration. We just won. I highly doubt she slapped him in the face or anything like that afterwards. She probably smiled and just continued to move on. Maybe they exchanged names. Well, obviously, you guys saw from the very, very beginning that obviously these two kept in contact. It makes me wonder if the lady, the deputy secretary at the VA, it makes me wonder if that woman whose name was like Rima or something like that there, whatever the hell her name was, it makes me wonder if said woman had ever even been, I don't know, laid or even in a relationship. And I'm not saying this to be a complete total jerk or anything. I'm just simply asking the question. Has this woman ever even been in a relationship with anybody at all? Has she ever even had a man? I'm not saying this to make fun of anybody who may be an L. I'm just simply saying, how corroded do you have to be inside to say that something like this, which, by the way, was done in celebratory fashion, especially given the fact that the man and woman spoke to the man's dying day. How in the world can you say we need to get rid of this photo? Like, we need to just go ahead and just put an end to this entire stuff, and we can't think back on the time that we actually won a war. Because in reality, Korea was a tie, Vietnam, they tell us that was a loss, and of course, they keep on telling us over and over again that Iraq and Afghanistan was not worth it, even though those two fights were actually bungled. The thing is this right here. This iconic photo symbolizes American victory. But because some corroded old fool who probably has never been laid is upset because it's non-consensual. Thank God that the director of the Veterans Administration decided to put the kibosh on this. But it does mean something else when you actually go further, why it is that people are not wanting to join the military.
Why we have historic recruitment problem with the military, this is it right here. I mean, people, authorities, officials, spending their time not working to solve real problems that we have in the veteran community, homelessness, job placement, access to health care, PTSD. You could be spending your time on all of these issues, but you spend your time trying to outlaw a photo. Yeah. We are 22,000 sailors behind in terms of people that we need on ships overseas. You know who's not spending their time banning photos? The Chinese Communist Party, right. The PLA. It's time to start focusing the VA and the DOD on warfighters and not on climate change and not on people's pronouns and emails. And until the DOD does that, you will continue to have a historic recruitment crisis because you're not talking about warfighting when you're talking about some photo, which is a beautiful moment from World War II, or you're talking about someone's pronouns in their emails. We're all sick of it.
The statue was vandalized a lot like what they did back in 2020 when they were going out there and they were just vandalizing statues as a whole. Look, I've said this right before about statues. The only time that I've ever said that a statue should come down was in the case of, say, the Iowa State House, which, by the way, they also charged that guy with a hate crime, which I thought was stupid. They put Baphomet, they put a satanic statue in their... They placed that in their halls of Congress, the State House. In that case right there, I can understand why it is that somebody would actually do that. And I even made a video about that, talking about how it was that Christians were beginning to fight back. The thing is this right here. Statues as a whole should not be pulled down, mostly because we need to see exactly where it is that we came from. Now, I'll probably do a video at a later date talking about why it is the statues need to stay up. And, of course, all the efforts to try to get these statues removed continue to fail. And they keep on saying, they keep on pumping the narrative that, well, you know, like I said, I'll save that right there for another video. I know somebody's probably going to say it's a pretty weak argument for me to say that the statues need to stay up so that way we can see where it is that we came from. But the fact of the matter is that if people put the statue up and they want the statue up, then obviously it should stay up. Unlike in the situation with the Iowa State House where people actually wanted the statue down. A lot of the attempts to try to remove a statue or remove something of note from a lot of these areas, especially areas in the South, a lot of these attempts have blatantly failed. But don't worry, we'll talk about that in another video. But you got to ask yourself a question. Does anybody want to join our current military at this moment in time? And why in the world would these people suddenly say, you know what, man, I don't want to join said military because you people are out here taking down statues. You people are doing God knows what, the VA, which, you know, McEnany, by the way, was about to say, I kind of cut that clip a little bit short, but I'll leave the whole clip in the description box. She was trying to say that we got to ask ourselves a question, exactly how deep it goes and exactly what other memos are being tossed around. This administration that is currently heading this nation is the most anti-American administration I've ever seen. And I thought the Obama administration was anti-American. But then again, though, we also know who the hell's pulling the levers of power. But I want to end this video on this note here. Obviously, this is stupid. Obviously, this right here is dumb. But there's one more thing that needs to be said. This right here is going to be a bit of a primer for the next video, which will be on Gear Issue 33, where we talk about the left's relationship with the military as a whole, and we talk about overall recruitment, which, by the way, I'm probably going to another video or fault video here, so that way you guys can get a different version, or you guys can get a different perspective. It's this little thing right here that ABC did about 6 or 7 months ago. You see, after the disastrous pullout in Afghanistan, obviously the parents of the 13, well, it's really 11 Marines, 1 corpsman and 1 soldier, they obviously had to sit down with ABC, Martha Raddatz. Pay very, very close attention to what this lady has to say.
Lopez, and I was not Mrs. Lopez. And he just talked about his son and said how much he knows or he understands how do we feel because he lost his kid and he didn't feel. He didn't know how we feel because he was there with his son when he passed. We didn't have that privilege. We receive our kids in a casket. I just feel so disrespectful by that man because it was all about him.
She never got time with her child. She never got to see her child before she passed away. And the current president of the United States, while he was on the tarmac, decided he wanted to talk about his son and losing his son. And my response to that would be, you know what, Joe? We know that Beau Biden was a good guy. We also know that he lost his life after a terrible battle with cancer. He lost his life in a terrible battle with cancer. He didn't lose his life overseas in the war. That old pederistic guy that's in office right now has no room to talk about anything involved in this. I want to toss this in here to kind of give you guys an indication or an idea of exactly how far out of touch the administration is with its own military and its own veterans. It's an iconic photo. It should not be removed or anything. And thank God somebody was actually willing to step up and actually use their brain on this situation to keep it from being removed. With that right there being said, guys, we're heading into the weekend. I know this video here is kind of a somber video. Probably not one of my best videos, but I needed to kind of rant on it. Please tell me what you think in the comment section. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video. Like I said, we've got a lot of content coming out this weekend, so make sure you guys stick around for all of it. And I'll see you guys later.